Nobody in Judge Vonda's courtroom that morning suspected they were minutes away from one of the most jaw-dropping moments in the show's history. The cameras were already rolling, the audience had settled into their seats, and the bailiff stood at attention near the door. Then she walked in. Aurora Kensington was the only daughter of tech billionaire Victor Kensington, a man who owned 7 companies, a private island, a small army of lobbyists, and a long track record of buying whatever outcome he wanted. Aurora didn't so much walk into the room as glide through it, like the whole building had been built for her entrance. Her heels struck the floor in a rhythm that practically announced her net worth. She was dressed in a $12,000 gown, dripping in diamonds, wearing a smile that made the whole room feel a little colder. She never looked at the crowd, the cameras, or the woman she was suing. Her eyes went straight to Judge Vonda, and she smirked the kind of smirk that said, "I own people like you for breakfast." Quick note before we go further, if you're new to this channel, go ahead and hit subscribe. You will not want to miss where this goes. What Aurora didn't know was that she'd already sealed her own fate before she ever stepped foot in the building. Judge Vonda had spent the morning combing through the case file, the complaint, the counterfiling, the evidence, and Aurora's own pre-trial statement. One line in that statement, printed in flat black ink, had nearly gotten Vonda out of her chair right then and there. It was a line soaked in contempt, the kind of sentence that stripped away every carefully curated Instagram post and showed exactly who Aurora really was. In less than 20 minutes, that same arrogance would take her entire life apart. Aurora dropped into her seat like sitting down was an inconvenience, chin tilted, spine straight, flipping her hair for no reason at all. Across from her sat Mia Reyes, 27 years old, owner of a small bakery, hands shaking as she held onto a folder stuffed with receipts. She looked worn down, like someone who'd barely made it through something she still wasn't ready to talk about out loud. When Judge Vonda walked in, the room stood. Everyone except Aurora, who stayed seated 3 extra seconds, just long enough for the cameras to catch it, just long enough for Vonda to clock it. It was a message loud and clear. I don't stand for anybody. That was crack number 1. Vonda's eyes narrowed just slightly, nothing a casual viewer would catch, but anyone who'd watched her for years knew exactly what that look meant. It meant the patience was gone. It meant a storm was building. "Miss Kensington," Vonda said, her voice deceptively even, "you're facing a claim for $36,400 in damages. Miss Reyes says you destroyed her business, harassed her for months, and used your father's name to intimidate her. What do you have to say?" Aurora laughed out loud, a light mocking laugh that sent a shiver through the gallery. She crossed her arms, leaned back in her chair and said, cool as anything, "Honestly, Judge, this is a waste of my time. I don't even understand why we're doing this. I've got more than her whole bakery is worth sitting in my purse right now." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Mia stared at the floor. Vonda didn't so much as blink the stillness of someone who's about to detonate. "Miss Kensington," Vonda repeated, slower this time, "I asked you a question and I expect an answer." Aurora shrugged like none of this mattered. "Fine. She wrecked my event. She humiliated my family in public. And I'm not going to apologize because someone else can't handle their money problems. That's not on me." Vonda's pen stopped moving. Money problems. The phrase sat in the air like something rotten. "Ms. Reyes," Vonda said, turning toward the plaintiff, "walk me through what happened at the event." Before Mia could open her mouth, Aurora's hand shot up like she was back in grade school. Vonda stared at her, genuinely surprised she'd try it. "Yes?" she asked flatly. Aurora tossed her hair. "I can just tell it better." She gets emotional. "Mistake number 2. Mia's voice trembled as she described the public humiliation, the threats that followed, a viral clip Aurora's friends had posted online, the client she lost, the vandalism after the story got twisted online, and how close her bakery came to shutting down completely. Vonda took it all in. Aurora scrolled through her phone. The crowd's disgust was becoming impossible to hide. And then it happened, the moment that would freeze the entire room, stop Vonda cold, and turn this episode into the most watched clip on the internet. Real quick, if this story's got you hooked, subscribe now, because the next part is the one everybody ends up talking about. Vonda sat back, folded her hands, and was about to press further, but Aurora got there first. Rolling her eyes loud enough for the back row to hear, she said, "Why am I even bothering to explain myself? I own people like her. I could own this entire room if I felt like it. I own." She jabbed a finger at Judge Vonda. "You." Dead silence dropped over the courtroom like a curtain. Someone in the gallery gasped audibly. Mia's hand flew to her mouth. The bailiff's jaw locked, and Judge Vonda, without a word, set her pen down on the bench. The room felt 10 degrees colder in an instant. When Vonda finally spoke, her voice was quiet, flat, and absolutely merciless. "Miss Kensington, you just wrote your own verdict," and she hadn't even started yet. If people thought Sloan Harrington had already hit rock bottom on the entitlement scale, they were about to be proven very wrong. What came next was a level of arrogance so over the top that even the camera operators leaned in closer, sensing something historic was about to unfold. Sloan hadn't come to defend herself. She'd come to run the room. At least that's what she believed. When Judge Vonda asked her a basic, direct question, Sloan answered with a smirk that could sour milk, staring at Vonda the way someone stares at hotel staff who folded the towels wrong. "Miss Harrington," Vonda said evenly, "tell me what happened at the gala, just the facts." Sloan let out a light, dismissive laugh, crossing her legs like she was ordering brunch. "Judge, I don't really do facts. That's what our lawyers are for. I'm only here because my legal team said it would look good. Honestly, this whole thing is a joke." The room went stiff. Even the bailiff, a man built like granite, raised an eyebrow. Vonda's eyes narrowed slightly. Not dramatically, but enough that anyone paying attention could feel the temperature shift. Sloan didn't notice or didn't care. She pulled out her phone right there in Judge Vonda's courtroom and started scrolling, casual as a waiting room. "Put the phone away," Vonda said, ice in her voice. Sloan didn't even glance up. "One sec, my dad's texting me." Those 5 words were enough for the entire room to reach the exact same silent conclusion. This was about to go very badly for her. Sloan finally looked up, smiling sweetly, condescendingly. "Sorry, but when your father runs the biggest tech company in the country, you don't just ignore him. We're not like everyone else. Honestly, I shouldn't even have to be here. My dad already said he'd handle it." Vonda leaned forward an inch. "This is my courtroom, Miss Harrington, not your father's boardroom." Sloan shrugged. Same difference. Power's power. A gasp went through the gallery. Elena Dawson, the woman Sloan had publicly humiliated at the gala, shook her head, stunned. Sloan clocked her reaction and pushed further. "Oh, come on, she's being so dramatic. I barely touched her. Honestly, she should thank me. I basically got her free publicity." Elena's jaw tightened, months of frustration boiling under the surface. Sloan wasn't finished. She leaned back, chin lifted, and dropped the line that would end up everywhere online within the hour. "Look, I'm a Harrington. People like us don't lose. We basically own half this city. And honestly, Judge," she waved a hand at Vonda like brushing off a fly, "I own you too." The room went completely silent. No coughing, no shifting, not even the sound of a page turning. The temperature seemed to drop further. The gallery sat frozen. Even the camera seemed to zoom in on instinct. And Judge Vonda simply looked at her, not offended, not shocked, just utterly still. The kind of still that means somebody just found a line nobody knew existed. Sloan, completely oblivious, kept talking, digging herself deeper with every sentence. Let's be real, your whole career is TV ratings, and my family basically funds the network. Maybe show a little respect instead of acting like we're on the same level. Vonda said nothing. She didn't move. She simply pressed her fingertips together, calm as a surgeon, about to begin a procedure everyone in the room could feel coming. That's when the audience understood this wasn't going to end with a scolding. Sloan flipped her hair. Not really, but go ahead. Someone in the back let out a low whistle. She's toast. A voice muttered. Elena's hands trembled, not from fear anymore, but anticipation. She knew what was coming. Everyone did. Sloan had just turned a routine lawsuit into a televised takedown of generational entitlement. And she had absolutely no idea Judge Vonda had already read every ugly detail in that report, every threat, every lie, every cruel comment. She had no idea the woman she just insulted was a force she couldn't out-talk. And Vonda was just getting started. The instant Judge Vonda's eyes landed on Aurora Sterling, the billionaire's daughter, who just announced, "I own you," the room's temperature seemed to plummet. Nobody moved. Not the bailiff, not the camera crew, not even Aurora's own attorney, who looked like he wanted to disappear into the carpet. Everyone in that room understood the same thing. Judge Vonda had crossed from irritated into something far more dangerous, and there was no walking that back. Vonda folded her hands slowly, deliberately, a gesture that usually preceded total demolition. Aurora, oblivious, was too busy whispering to her lawyer and basking in the illusion of power that came with a billionaire father and a last name that made corporate boards flinch. To her, this courtroom wasn't justice. It was just another room full of people who owed her deference. She genuinely believed none of this applied to her, that Vonda was just another woman with a gavel and a camera crew. Aurora crossed her arms, sighing like a bored teenager. Finally, let's get this over with. Vonda ignored it. Tell me why you believe Miss Ramirez owes you $50,000. Because she ruined my event, Aurora said, like she was explaining something obvious to a child. And because she needs to learn there are consequences for disrespecting my family. And what exactly, Vonda asked, gentle as a warning siren, did she do? She embarrassed me. Wouldn't let me into my own charity gala because I was 5 minutes late. Yelled at me in front of everyone. Grabbed my wrist. That's when Vonda opened a folder the audience hadn't seen yet. One she'd spent an hour reviewing before the cameras ever turned on. She opened it with a calm that made the whole room hold its breath. Miss Sterling, Vonda said, the security footage shows Miss Ramirez never touched you. She held up a printed still. You grabbed her. Aurora froze barely half a second, but long enough for everyone to catch the flash of panic underneath the performance. Vonda saw it too. I grabbed her because she was being disrespectful. Aurora, it's true, Aurora said, almost proud. My father. No. Vonda snapped, shutting the folder. We're not discussing your father. We're discussing you. Aurora blinked, but Vonda kept going. You are an adult, Miss Sterling, not a child, not a mouthpiece for your father's bank account, and definitely not the owner of this courtroom. The room went dead silent. Vonda leaned in. Miss Sterling, let me tell you something. No one in your life has apparently had the nerve to say. You've confused having money with having worth. You think wealth makes you untouchable. You think entitlement is the same thing as power. It isn't. Power without any self-discipline is a disaster waiting to happen. Aurora's face flushed. You don't know anything about me. I know plenty, Vonda said. I know you filed this $50,000 emotional distress claim, and that same night you were online laughing about humiliating, in your words, the security girl on national TV for touching a Sterling. Aurora's face drained of color. Her attorney closed his eyes, and Vonda continued, opening another document. I know the next day you called 3 news outlets claiming you'd been physically assaulted despite footage proving the exact opposite. Whispers erupted across the gallery. Aurora's composure cracked completely. That's not fair. You're twisting this. No, Vonda said sharply. I'm exposing it. There's a difference. Pause here for a second. If this is doing it for you, hit subscribe. It genuinely helps keep this channel bringing you more of these. Vonda sat back. We're far from finished. What you did to Miss Ramirez wasn't just vindictive. It was dangerous. You tried to use your father's money to crush a hardworking woman for doing her job. And now you, not your father, are going to answer for it. The room stayed silent. The woman who walked in, radiating wealth and confidence, suddenly looked small. And Vonda wasn't done with her yet. The moment Avery Sinclair finished her sentence, you should be grateful. My family keeps you relevant. A wave of stunned silence swept the courtroom. Even the producers, who'd seen plenty of entitled outbursts over the years, froze in place. This wasn't just rudeness. This was a billionaire's daughter telling a judge on camera that she was worthless. And when you say that to a woman who built her entire career exposing liars and humbling the arrogant, there's exactly one outcome. Judge Vonda didn't raise her voice. She didn't slam anything. She just calmly took off her glasses, folded them, and set them down like she was preparing for surgery. Miss Sinclair, she said, stand up. The room inhaled sharply. Avery rose, bracelet catching the light. Chin tilted like she was posing for a magazine cover instead of standing before a judge. She still had no idea what she just walked into. The gallery recoiled. Even her attorney covered his face. Vonda leaned in, eyes like flint. Let me explain something your parents apparently never bothered to. Avery smirked the same smirk that had bought off teachers, cowed managers, and silenced every waiter and security guard she'd ever crossed. That smirk was about to meet its end. In this courtroom, Vonda said, voice rising, your father's money is worthless. Your last name is worthless. Your entitlement is worthless. You are a litigant and right now a deeply disrespectful one. Please, Avery scoffed, spare me. You can't actually do anything to me. Vonda's smile turned slow and dangerous. Oh, sweetheart, watch me. She flipped open a folder. Let's talk about the footage of you keying Miss Rodriguez's car, or the messages you sent her, or the parking lot stunt where you threatened to ruin her life if she pressed charges. Avery's smirk faltered. That's private. It stopped being private, Vonda replied, the moment you decided to act like a criminal. Gasps spread through the room. Avery forced a shaky smile back onto her face. Okay, but even if hypothetically it's just a car, I'll buy her a new one. Vonda's palm hit the bench hard enough to make the whole room jump. This isn't about money. The room seemed to shudder with her. This is about accountability. This is about you using your father's wealth as a weapon against a woman who did nothing except refuse to let you control her. She disrespected me. Avery's voice cracked. No, Vonda fired back. She refused to bow to you. That's not disrespect, that's backbone. Avery's face went red. You're biased. You're only on her side because she doesn't have money. Enough. The word landed like thunder. You don't get to hide behind wealth after spending your entire life weaponizing it. Avery's composure was cracking fast, panic creeping up her throat. Vonda turned to Elena Rodriguez, the plaintiff, sitting quietly, still visibly shaken. Miss Rodriguez, Vonda said gently, "Show the footage." Elena's hands shook as she placed a flash drive on the bailiff's desk. The moment the courtroom screen lit up, Avery's world started coming apart. There she was, unmistakably, keying Elena's car, laughing, calling her garbage, and bragging that daddy's lawyers will bury you. The room went utterly silent. Avery's face turned white. "No, that's edited. That's Miss Sinclair." Vonda cut her off. "This footage came straight from the security system in your own building. They've confirmed it's authentic." "Fair," Vonda repeated. "You terrorized this woman for months, threatened her job, destroyed her property, weaponized your father's name against her, and then you walked into my courtroom and told me I belong to you." Her voice dropped, quiet and lethal. "Miss Sinclair, those 47 seconds of arrogance just became the most expensive of your life. And we haven't even reached the ruling." Avery's hand flew to her mouth, tears finally real. The whole room braced for what was coming. The room had gone so quiet, even the camera crew seemed to hold their breath. Aurora Sterling, who walked in wearing a smile built entirely on entitlement, now sat trembling, hands shaking against the table. Every trace of her earlier confidence had burned off. Everyone in that courtroom was waiting to see how she'd survive a storm she never saw coming. Judge Vonda said nothing at first, just watched her with a stillness far more unnerving than any shout could have been. Aurora shifted, straightened her blazer, swallowed hard, trying to hold on to the last scraps of composure. But it was written all over her she'd lost, and some part of her already knew it. Across the aisle, Mia Castillo sat clutching a folder of evidence, hospital records, repair bills, screenshots, security footage, documentation of everything Aurora had put her through. Not just the car, not just the harassment, but a whole pattern of cruelty from someone who couldn't stomach being held accountable by a woman she saw as beneath her. "Miss Sterling," Judge Vonda said quietly, "stand up." Aurora rose on unsteady legs, breath catching like the room had run out of air. Vonda looked at her the way only someone with decades on the bench could, seeing straight through every lie and every ounce of manufactured entitlement. "You told this courtroom and everyone watching at home," Vonda said, "that you own me, that your father's money and influence entitle you to disrespect, intimidate, and hurt anyone who won't kneel to your last name." Aurora went still. Vonda's voice grew stronger with every sentence. "You may have grown up somewhere consequences didn't exist, but hear this clearly. You do not own me, you do not own this courtroom, and you do not own the law. Today, you learn exactly what happens when privilege runs into justice." Vonda turned to Mia. "Miss Castillo, your evidence was thorough and completely credible. You held it together when most people would have broken. You showed real integrity while being mocked and threatened. And you stood your ground against someone who thought she could flatten you just because she wanted to." Vonda turned back to Aurora, her voice hardening. "You damaged Miss Castillo's car deliberately. You harassed her. You posted things about her online that weren't true and encouraged others to pile on. You cost her money, peace of mind, and her reputation." Aurora's eyes filled, but she didn't dare say a word. For that, Vonda said, "I'm awarding Miss Castillo everything she asked for. $11,800 in damages, $4,200 in legal fees, $7,000 in lost wages, and $25,000 in punitive damages for malicious conduct." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Vonda wasn't finished. "And understand, This is the legal maximum I'm allowed to award. If I could give more, I would. Aurora's face crumpled. Her father half rose from his seat in the gallery, but Vonda's gaze snapped to him. Sit down, Mr. Sterling. Your money doesn't erase what your daughter did. If anything, it's probably why she thought she could get away with it. He sat. The whole room felt the shift. The untouchable had just become very touchable. Vonda turned back to Aurora. There's one more thing. The threats you made online, the harassment you encouraged, and your attempt to intimidate this court will not be ignored. I'm referring this case to the district attorney's office. Whether charges follow is up to them, not you. Not your father, and certainly not your checkbook. Aurora sank into her chair, face buried in her hands. Mia let out a long, quiet breath, months of fear and exhaustion finally lifting. She didn't smile or gloat. She just closed her eyes and let it settle. Real justice, finally. Judge Vonda leaned forward and delivered the line that would be everywhere online within the hour. You told me you own me. No, Miss Sterling. Today, the law owns you. The courtroom didn't erupt in applause right away. First came a heavy charged silence. Then, slowly, people began to clap. Not for the drama, for the accountability. Aurora sat frozen, her entire world of money and invincibility cracked wide open in front of millions. Mia wiped her eyes and Judge Vonda simply said, "We're done here. Next case." And that's the case. If you want more of this kind of justice served cold, subscribe. We've got plenty more where this came from.